Community development.
We admit it. I see you.
So Julie's our planning and community development director. The first area we'll speak to is planning and zoning. Know that there's the increases that you see in personnel expenses were budgeted last year by the commission, and it includes the city planner. So that's the big change you see in there.
Yeah, other than that, I don't think we had any changes for planning, just that salary.
Under the commercial travel lodging meals, you'll see nothing in 18, and then you'll see it 19 and 20. And what that is Julie went every other year to the National Planners Conference. What's
The American Planning Association, and that's who my professional certification is through, and so that's useful to go to keep up my certification credits and to keep abreast of, new trends in planning and all of that, just for continuing education. And so like Paul said, I've been going every other year, and then just kind of fill in with local courses when I can, but I'd like to have our planner go on the years that I don't, so that she can get that same benefit from that as well.
the next budget, unless there's any questions on planning and zoning, is same thing, another division within community and planning development, which is code enforcement. We have 3 officers, a new one who started within the last.
It's been about a month and a half.
Who's doing a
Yes.
really good
Yeah,
job.
he's doing
Seems
great.
to be doing well both in court with people, with the
Yeah.
public,
Good.
and internally.
Good.
So those are hard positions to find solid performers on, and knock on wood, we think we found one.
Yeah.
For that third code enforcement officer.
What do you mean in court when you go, when, I
Yep,
mean,
when he has cases in court, that's kind of a fine
Right.
line to balance, and he's got a background in law enforcement
Right.
and parole, and so he's got a really good personality and just handles those types
Who
of
is
things really great. His name is Brad Lee.
Bradley, okay.
And
But
they
all-
still do court on Thursday mornings.
Yep, so we've got arraignments on Thursday mornings, and then any trials are on Thursday afternoons, so we've got everything on Thursday.
but all 3 of the code enforcement officers are in court depending on their
Yep,
their
it's depending
cases.
on if they have anything filed. Some weeks we don't have anything, some weeks all
Right,
3 of them,
okay.
some weeks just 1 of them, just depends.
And our city prosecutor, Mr. Dawson, has taken a more aggressive approach on those serial offenders, has he not?
He has. He's been responsive to us, sort of advocating for a stronger
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
And that was probably a step that we missed, rather than having him sort of organically identify, repeat people, is to proactively point that out before the court
Yeah.
date. Hey,
Yeah.
this is on Thursday. We're tired of this one. It's chronic. Please push for that. So we've been better at that.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, because
Yeah.
we do have our serial offenders, and they,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
we need to get rid of that.
And another thing that we've done with the court, which we can talk more about when Debbie's here, they've moved up the code enforcement cases to start the court day, so the judge is able to make quicker decisions and move people in and out more efficiently with code enforcement officers there than before having to reschedule and continue the cases.
Yeah, it's working a lot more efficiently.
At some point, we may want to share that with the public. I don't know, not getting all the details and
Sure.
everything, but I think that's important. You've made
it
some
is.
internal improvements to, get at that situation that we have a lot of constituents and commissioners are concerned about. So I just think about strategic communication on that, how we do that better.
I wanted to note, you'll see the personnel expenses, you'd see that 2.25% across the board, which affects full-time, but also then would affect, some of the ancillary capers and stuff like that minimally. Some departments you'll see bigger shifts than others, and that would be the compensation portion. And it does completely affect the different departments differently, whether they had adjustments or not. So if you see a little bit larger percentage increase in some departments than others, that would be directly tied to how the employees in that department or that division fared in the compensation and classification study.
Okay.
Just to make sure I'm reading these columns right. The first column is 2019,
2018 actuals,
2018. Second column,
2019 budget, and 2020 budget.
okay.
The reason we don't have 2020 or 2019 estimates is we have to pull these by May.
Yeah, no, I
And it's
understand.
almost impossible
Yeah, I
to
understand.
estimate the rest of the year from May.
Paul, on the, also in the planning and zoning and that full-time personnel, that's where we also include the rental coordinator
Yeah,
position.
the
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So the previous page, that increase includes the
Yeah.
rental property coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, so we, on that one, we've got a, sort of a rough draft job description put together for that, so.
It's
once-
actually been through myself and Lana, so.
Yeah.
Funding will be available January 1, so we'll probably post early October, something like that, to have somebody
Yeah.
on place and to be able to start beginning of the year.
That's the 62,000.
Yeah.
Including benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just to point out on the code enforcement, we've still got the $30,000 for demolition again next year, and that, sounds like a hefty amount, but it goes fairly quick once we start adding up costs related to demos, so.
And that's our money that we
That's
don't
our
have to
money.
use the HUD requirements. We can
Correct.
move a little bit quicker if necessary.
Yeah, and
How
so that's
much-
in addition to the CDBG.
Where is our what line number is demo?
That's,
Contractual
under contractual services, this,
6919.
yeah, 6919.
Okay. And 30,000 this year and 30,000 next year. If you had, I know you can't estimate, it's too early, but we're gonna eat up that 30,000 by August 1st? Or have we eaten it up?
I would anticipate we'll have it gone, yeah, by this fall. The commission had us put together a little bit larger, group of demos. This year we had 20 that we brought forward. Usually it's more around the 12 or 15 range. So a large batch of those, if you'll recall, in May got a 90-day extension to August. So we've started taking down a few that were slated for immediate demolition. And so once we get that big batch in August that got the extensions, it'll just depend whether or not they've actually done the work, or if they've not, we're gonna move forward as to whether or not we eat up that $30,000.
Without getting too much in the weeds, that burned out house at Broadway and Olive, is it going today, this week?
That one, actually, the owner has hired a demolition company. That was one of the two, if you'll remember, you gave that one, another one on Fourth, time to take down on their own, the owners. That one, the burned out house, the owner has hired a demolition company. It's one that we're familiar with, that we work with. They've come in, they've pulled the demo permit, and they're just waiting on one more utility to be disconnected. And then as soon as that's done, they'll be taking it down.
And was the building one lot south of it included in that too?
No, that is not included in that.
That's not on the demo, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's that little blue house, yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the same lot. The state of that did not meet our demo criteria, so that little blue house will be staying there.
And I know it's a matter of houses or properties meeting the demolition criteria, but I was very pleased to see 20 properties on the list.
Yeah.
And looking at the city overall, I don't see why in the upcoming years we'd have any less than 20. Just saying, so. I mean, and we've got money allocated, so I think we just need to keep pressing on that, so.
How much money do we get from, HUD money do we get?
What do we
Approximately.
put in the blight elimination, out of your CDBG funds?
I don't remember, I think it was right around, 53,000. It was a bit more than what we used from the general funds.
So we have approximately $80,000 a year
That's a
that we
good
can,
point.
Yeah.
and figure $8,000 a demo, on
It's anywhere
average.
from like 6 to 15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just depends, and yeah, and that includes, we've got costs in pulling just the title work, in disconnecting utilities, and, all of that, it adds up. It's not just the
The
cost
actual,
to knock it down.
right.
Yeah.
And in some cases now, some legal work.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, right, it can be, yeah.
You, just, do you know right off the top of your head, how much 403 Olive cost, the demo with,
I don't, did you run the invoice yet?
I did, but I gotta say, we've got 3 of them going right now, my brain gets kind of
yeah, no problem, no
But
problem.
I'm thinking it was around 12.
Yeah, that's what, it's,
We
you know,
can
just
look
trying
that
to
up when
see.
we go
That
back
was
upstairs
just-
and bring it back down
That was
to you
just
today.
the base cost of the demo, and like Julie said, there's
Yeah, no, I know, so,
$2,000-3,000 worth of other.
no, I understand, my point being, if that was 12,000, you know, 80,000, really doesn't go that far.
No, it goes pretty quick once
Yeah,
you start
yeah.
adding it up.
Yeah, most of them are now running between, they aren't running at 5, they're running between 8 and 12,
Yeah,
if they're residential property.
right, thank you.
Would it be cheaper in the long run? I know it would be, if we did it ourselves instead of contracting these demolitions.
Demolished?
Yeah,
I don't know
we've
the
got the
answer to
trucks,
that.
all we need is a track hoe.
Yeah, I'd have to talk to Mike a little bit and get a little more information. I just don't have any experience in that. But we can do.
Yeah, if you would.
Or another option, I know I spoke with you briefly about it, and I think you've done some investigating in yourself, is possibly starting a land bank. And with that, I think that we'll be able to save a lot of taxpayers money. And also, and I know the program is all about bringing the house up to code and removing blight, but to be able to have companies coming in and purchase these homes and bringing them up to codes within a certain amount of days, I think will also save the taxpayers and also help support, you know, the blight program that we have.
Yeah, so that's one thing that Mary Dwyer and I have been working on a little bit, mainly Mary. There's some other communities in Kansas, you may be familiar with Wyandotte County. The UG has a fairly successful land bank program where they take in these blighted properties that are bad, but maybe not so bad that they're falling down that they could really be rehabilitated fairly easily. And they bring those back into, you know, a functional residence. And so we've been taking a look at that. We've got some information together, and we'll be doing just sort of a brief overview for the city manager here at some point this summer, and then hopefully move forward with getting you all some information on next steps that would need to be taken to do that.
Do they have to be abandoned properties?
There's state statute regarding that, and there's rules for, I don't believe they have to be abandoned, they don't have to be abandoned, there's different statutes
So
that we have to
if I have a
follow.
house that let fall apart, there is a process that you can take it, then someone else can.
There's a very specific process laid out in state statute that we would have to follow.
Okay,
But yeah, you can do it, and, you know, a title has to be cleared, and it requires cooperation from, you know, the county, since they're the, you know,
sure.
the
That'd be
whole all of that,
interesting.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
the overall purpose
yeah.
of all of our programs here is for people to clean up their property.
Right.
Make them presentable,
Yeah.
not be a cancer on the neighborhood,
Right.
which they have been.
Yeah.
And if they're not, you know, we've got to remove that cancer, but the purpose,
Yeah.
if they improve it,
Right.
we applaud them.
Yeah, and we run into definitely a good handful of properties that we see on our demolition list that we think, gosh, you know, it's just really too bad that there's not an owner or someone who's willing to
Sure.
fix it up, because
Yeah.
it could be done, but
Yeah.
there's not, and so, you know, we're left with a lot fewer options, so we're hoping to kind of expand what we can do to work with that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mary, you wanna come up for the next one, or if not? And Julie, if you wanna start on the community development budget?
Oh, I'm glad this one's in bigger font.
We had some formatting issues this year.
Smaller.
Yeah,
It'll be better.
the mayor doesn't know the problems with smaller and bigger fonts, but he will in some 20 years in the future, but right now.
Yep, so this is our CDBG grant that we receive every year, and that amount is based wholly on what the federal government gives us. You know, we can apply for whatever amount, and then they decide how much of that they're gonna give us or not give us. So I'll let Mary just kind of give a brief overview of what we do with that and what might have changed.
Okay. The budget actually is formulated by the federal government based on the allocation that they get at the federal level, and then they prorate depending on what size community you are. So we kind of squeak in as an entitlement city because they count the population at the fort into our population. So this year our funding went down because at the federal level it went down for HUD to be able to fund CDBG. But we're still getting funded, which is better than, you know, earlier on they were talking about totally eliminating it. So I feel comfortable about that. We put our process forward, our annual action plan, and y'all saw that earlier. Primarily our thrusts are home rehabilitation, repairs for health and safety for low, moderate income personnel or residents. We do first-time home buyer assistance. We do the demolition of dangerous structures. I fund the public service agencies, and you had that when you went through the annual action plan. We've got 6 agencies, I think, this year that we're funding. And that's our primary thrusts within that program. Within all of that, the major thrust is in home rehab. We use it primarily for, like I said, health and safety issues, so that includes HVAC systems, electrical issues, water issues. We've done several sewer connections. We do roofs, a lot of roofs, because it's the primary carrier for the structure. And we cap it at $5,000 for low income and $3,000 for moderate income. Primarily so we can stretch it out, and also there's some other guidelines in regard to lead-based paint that we have to follow if we go over that cap. So
do you ever do any disability issues like ramps?
we have done ramps. Yeah, I should have probably
Somebody
said
asked
that.
about that
Yeah,
the other day.
we do. And I've contacted some of the home care agencies and gone and done presentations about us being able to do ramps because they're quite costly. And we changed our guidelines so that we could do ramps for both owners and renters. The other repairs we do only for owners
Got it, okay.
because we feel like the rentals should be taken care of by those owners
Okay,
of the
sounds
rental.
good, thank you.
Any,
In terms of the funds, and you've come in front of us and, you know, a few months ago, you briefed us, right? And, because each year we don't use all the funds that are allocated to the city. Is that a correct statement? Or I know it rolls
I would
over.
say,
We don't,
yeah,
we don't.
each year we do have a small, because we can't really
Right.
judge how many people
Yeah.
we're gonna have. And sometimes, we're able to move the money from one pot to the other if we need to. And we don't incur federal guidelines unless we do that in a major way, like 50% of what we had allocated. But if, like, last year we had more home ownership than we had anticipated, we took some money out of home repair because we had less of those. This year we had lots more home repairs and we had less home ownership, so it kind of fluxes. But we do have a small amount that we carry, and here it's marked as a reserve, and it's not really a reserve. 5,000, I think that's just a general title, but 50,000 of that is money that we had received back from the federal government. If we do a demolition, they don't want the city to profit from any demolition.
Right.
So the way that that happens is we do the demolition. If they don't pay what they're assessed, then we just let that ride. And then if in the future they want to sell the property, then they'll pay that assessment. That money has to be forwarded back to the federal government and put back in our pool to be expended on programming. So that, it's complicated a little bit, but that's what we do. So about 50,000 of it was that. The other 50,000 was unexpended funds. And at the end of the year, we closed those programs that we've been doing. We opened new programs, even though some of them are exactly the same as we had done the previous year. and we reallocate the money into programming.
And very quickly, how do we get the word out to the citizens that this program's available? I mean, how do you-
I have printed rack cards that we put out. I go and do community presentations. And this year we had a lot of success in working in partnership with the city clerk's office, the Council on Aging, and Catholic Charities in doing reverse marketing. Like I would try and market their programs to the people that I serve, and they would do the same. We got a lot of participation from some of the elderly that were applying for the program out of the
Good.
city clerk's office.
Good.
And so we try and do those kinds of projects to get the word out as much as we can.
I think there's some information on the television channel too, isn't
There
there?
is.
Yeah,
There is.
and that's
And then
pretty
we
standard, but I
almost-
do,
We almost always put it in the
the bulletin,
bulletin that goes
Yeah.
out to each home
Okay.
as well. But primarily, we just try to keep getting the word out over and over because some people are
Yeah, absolutely.
hesitant, you know, and we want to make sure that they are aware that this money is available if they have a need.
well, thank you for looking at that new marketing technique.
Yeah.
That's good, that's good.
Try and keep
Right.
it rolling. My goal is to spend it down to
Right.
0 every year, so if we can, I'd be
Sure.
happy to do that.
So how many people did you serve this year for the program?
We had 25 in the home repair program and 4 in the home ownership program. We had projected that we would do 6 in the home ownership program, and the market is just so tight for starter homes that we don't get as many applications. I do try to contact all the, and I've done it a couple of times this year because we didn't get as much activity. I contact the real estate brokers, I contact the banks are a good source for us. Banks, any kind of financial institution that is in the community, some mortgage brokers as well. So, and try to get the word out that way.
Maybe cover this, and I didn't hear it. Why is there a 25% reduction in personnel expenses for 19 to 20?
I can address that. With the federal funding, there's only a certain amount of money that's allowed for administrative expenses. And so we had a couple of people who did part-time work for Mary's, and we took those salaries out and put those
That's our
back in
two
the general.
administrative
Okay,
people
so
up in my office.
it's not gonna have any effect
No.
on
No.
yours, okay, that's all I was
And
concerned
they're
about.
not gone, we just reallocated their
Okay,
salaries.
but it just has no effect on what you're, I wanna
No.
make sure of that, I didn't know.
The federal government caps administration at 20%, which if you're getting $1 million, 20% is not so bad, but if you're a small
Yeah.
entity, 20% is,
Yeah, it-
doesn't go very far.
yeah, I understand.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Fire department is next.
Do you wanna do planters and section 8?
No, I think they are they scheduled for that?
They're with community development.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, since
there's-
Julie's doing
yeah.
planners in section 8, we'll go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
Where's that?
Page 24,
Pass now.
starts planters.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so again, these planners in section 8, these are all federal dollars that come and fund these programs. So again, same situation as Mary, where there's an administrative cap, there's operating costs that we go through. Then there's the two planners' budgets, or the planners' operating and the planners' capital budget, which I included in the transmittal letter to the commission. Again, that's Pat Tooley, who runs section 8 in Vash, Andrea Cheatham, and her staff that runs planters too. So I don't think there's anything.
Yeah,
to
there's
note
no
in any of those
changes with
budgets. They're all
their
funded.
budgets, and as Paul said, they're all funded through the federal dollars.
There's been no real major cuts from the
No.
federal government on this?
Nope, they haven't seen anything like that over there, which is good.
That's-
Great job.
Okay, thanks.
Keep the money coming.
Now fire, sorry guys.
You on the road, chief?
So the first one on page 13 is fire department admin. Obviously doesn't include the firefighters, includes fire administration. It increases in full-time or capers or all that is based on compensation or the results of the compensation study. Gary, is there anything of note? You'll see line 6802 under contractual services is the building and grounds M&R, and you'll see that zeroed out for the 2020 budget. That's what I mentioned during the CIP discussion, that's in the CIP budget, grouped with all the other departments, building and grounds, maintenance and repairs. So that's why that's zeroed out. That's anything, Gary, that you want to add?
Yeah, I'd just say, looking at 2019 and 2020, if my math is quick, it actually increased less than 1% last year. 94% of our budget is salaries, which is
Compensation, I mean salaries and
everything.
health.
Yeah, everything, yes. So anyway, so that's pretty much where we're at. That's the bulk of our budget. And I think most budgets are like that, but fire department's really heavy on personnel, so.
And there's some of your budget that goes towards training, obviously, too, right? Or training. I mean, is training covered in the,
Yes,
in
everything.
the annual operating? I would think it would be. So.
Everything's there. And I was trying, and basically, the budget looks a little different than last year, but it's not necessarily new money. I was moving some stuff around, and I'll get into that in just a minute on our EMS training, but we actually, when we do EMS training, we go over to the county, they have training over there monthly, and so, we have to do so much to keep our license up. And so them doors are always open, and we go there and utilize that, but we needed a little bit more. So I happened to take a refresher course out south a couple years ago, and one of the instructors, a former firefighter out in the county, he's a paramedic, and he's an instructor also. So we actually started bringing him in last year, and he does 2 hour, it's what we call CEUs, 2 CEUs in a specific topic, a core, we call a core topic. And so if you do that, that's 24 hours of core classes you need towards your licensure. And he does the same class 3 times to catch all 3 shifts, and paying $3,600 annually for that. And that's a lot cheaper than an employee, and it's just, we're getting good quality instruction, and it's been received real well. And just to kind of show you how the EMS training, in 2017, we had 3,500 hours of EMS training. In 2019 through June, so just half a year, we're at 3,229. So we'd be able to pick up there. Our fire training, and if you recall when I was talking about the ISO earlier, I knew my guys were out doing a lot of training, and we reported division training, battalion training, company training, like that in the cabins, put it in there. A lot of times we go out and do something, and they just don't think about it as being training.
Right.
And so, we met during the ISO process with some of our captains, and so, give you an example, in the fire training, in 2018, we had for fire type classes, just shy of 2,990 hours of fire training hours, and in 2019, just through June, we're already at 26, 27, so we're just capturing these things we actually do on fire training. Some of the other things, just note, in 2018, we installed 63 smoke detectors, and we still have those people call. And
Real quickly on smoke detectors
Yes,
again.
sir.
Any citizen can call you and you'll bring out,
you have to own the property.
Yeah.
We don't do it in rentals.
so, I could call you and say, come out and look at my smoke detectors, they don't work, you'd give me a new one. That's great.
Well, in
That's
your
great,
case,
sir.
I'd probably say you need to
Yeah.
buy one But this year already, we've done 52 already, and then those smoke detectors, we don't purchase, we get those through the State Fire Marshal grant, and also what I call the HOA Heart of America, we have grant money that we get from detectors dispersed out. And a lot of times, those numbers don't reflect 63 homes or 52 homes. Sometimes people, depending on the number of bedrooms, we go ahead and try to put it up, even though they're not hardwired, we try to put it up to where, what the codes require, they want each sleeping quarter and things of that. So some people may get 4 or 5, and so that's kind of what we're doing. When we do run across a few tenants, we've had some come in, people that rent, that want the smoke detector, and we tell them to check with the landlord. We've had a few cases where people are kind of nervous about even telling their landlord. I don't like anybody sleeping somewhere without one, so we'll go ahead and do it. And then the fire marshal will contact that individual, and a lot of times they'll say, well, it was there when they moved in, but, that's still, as a landlord, that's still your problem, so I understand that, but.
I don't think a lot of people know about the smoke detectors. I do home care visits, I do quality assurance visits, and I always ask about smoke detectors and if they're working. And if they own their house, I recommend that they go there, but if they don't, we don't even do a contract with them. I mean, if they're a renter and the owner doesn't provide it, we don't even do a contract with them because they have to have smoke detectors for our staff to go in there.
Right.
But so that's
We've tried to do some
interesting.
PSAs, and even the Red Cross, we've even partnered with them, they've even went and knocked on doors and stuff, over the
The
years.
Council on Aging, they know about it, I
Yes.
assume. Yeah.
I mean, it's on the website and stuff, so I mean, we do get contacted, but there's a lot of people, maybe they're not in need, I don't know, but we do the best we can. I guess we could always do
Sure.
better on getting the word out and doing PSAs and stuff on that.
Is do they have a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector all in one unit now, self-contained, or are they still two separate units?
Well, I think they do have that, but I believe, but ours are not.
We did get some recently that is a combination, but we don't know what we're gonna get sent when they send them, so, but most of the time it's just smoke detector only.
Who sends them to you?
The state fire marshal's office.
So the state is funding that, and they send them out and,
The state does it, and then also there's through Mark, the Homeland Heart of America Fire Chiefs,
Yeah.
we get grants also to them. The ones we've been getting too are pretty nice because they're like a 10-year life, battery and everything. So
Wow, good.
it's supposed to last, so
Do
anyway.
you have the red folders still?
The red folders are, yes,
You still have?
what's a red folder, Nancy?
The red folder is an emergency, you can explain it better than I can, emergency.
yeah, it's
Contact
hard to keep
information.
those things updated, and it's more really for the paramedics on the EMS side. But
Okay.
a red folder, and there's been other forms of it over the years, but it's a red folder that people can put their medical
Oh, yeah,
history, medication.
We
Put
were
it on the
briefed on that
refrigerator,
one,
we're
yeah.
talking
Right,
about
and they can
that.
put it on their
Put it on the
refrigerator
fridge or
or in the
something.
freezer, and
Yeah.
then you go there, but
Yeah,
it's very good in theory and does help, but,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
doesn't always get updated and stuff.
Thank you.
Good
Just
program.
curious, yeah.
Also, we do our annual hydrant inspections. The ISO, we had to really do things a little different this year. They actually, because what we had normally done, we turn it on and flush it till it gets clear, which helps with the quality of water. And then also, then we would check the static pressure and the residual pressure, residual being the pressure when it's flowing. To do a true flow test, you have to actually open several hydrants in the area and then watch to see how much it drops, a little more technical. And that's what they required us to do, the ISO this year. So going forward, we're gonna change our program just a little bit and start doing that. We really got held up, ISO kept calling me wanting that, but we got held up for a couple of reasons. One, the hydrants that they gave us to check were all on the busy, the 4th Street and Eisenhower's, and so we can't do that, so we used to go do that on the weekends. But then we had the first flood come in here, and then the water department had some issues and said, don't turn on nothing, and we didn't want to flow more water, and then, so we had to deal with that too. So we finally got it taken care of though, but going forward, we're gonna start doing change the way we do our flow tests too a little bit, going forward. So in 2018, we actually inspected 1,448 hydrants. And then in 2018, on what I call our public education, where we go out and talk, or people come to our school, we track that, we had 39 events. And then I always have them put in the number of children and adults, and so we actually had 2,300 contacts last year. So that's always, that's up to people calling and stuff. We get busy in usually October, Fire Prevention Week, because we go to schools and things of that nature.
Back to the hydrants, 1,448 you inspected. How many are there in the city?
It's over 1,500.
So you got 95
Yeah, we shoot for a third, you know, we flow a third of them.
So there's more than 1,500, more than 4,500.
There's around 1,500.
Okay, but in 1 year you did almost all
Right,
of it.
that's putting eyes on it.
Oh,
And we
okay.
flush
Oh.
a third.
Don't do the flow on.
Oh,
all
okay,
of it.
Yeah,
okay,
The third
okay,
of
You know,
okay.
and sometimes
Gotcha.
with, we even, the guys, will even, you know, some go back and paint some of them. And then they also sometimes will take a weed eater, weed eat the weeds around it if it's in an area where the homeowners aren't taking care of that.
You know, every now and then there's an anecdotal story, I think it happened in Kansas City, Raytown, somewhere in Kansas City, where house was on fire, went to the fire hydrant, it was a non-functional hydrant. You probably remember that story in the last year or two.
I've experienced that.
And,
But sometimes it just happens.
yeah, I understand that, but in your opinion, the 1,500 hydrants or so in the city are all functional in the city of Leavenworth? Or do you run into a dead one now and then?
We typically if there's a problem with a hydrant, the water department contacts us, and then we let everybody know. And in the past, there's even some that's been out for a long period of time where we'll go and put either paint it black on the top of it or put a trash bag or something to really identify that so that we don't land into that hydrant and waste the time to do
Yeah.
that, so.
One thing about us going out too, if we identify something, then we can contact the water department, put it on their list to go get it to maintenance it, versus when an emergency does happen and it, you know, it doesn't work at that point. But that does happen from time to time.
And since the water department is not part of the city, you know, we're a hybrid, other cities in this state, water department comes under the city. So, I mean, obviously, city manager could direct. Now with a separate entity, do you work well with the water department?
Yeah.
No.
We have a good relationship with them, yes.
So if you need water or help on,
Yes, and just like at ISO, we had to get with their engineer to get a lot of the technical stuff that we didn't
so no problem with that.
know.
You know, we contact them pretty much on a daily basis
Yeah, I'm
during the
sure you
summer. We have to let them know where we're gonna be testing hydrants and stuff, so
Yeah.
when they get called, if they notice a spike somewhere, or if a main breaks in an area, they might, you know, can kinda track it a little better that way.
In fact, right now, they've told us not even, for several weeks, they told us not, don't even check them right now, because they got some issues going on. But during the flood, we actually put our boat in the water, and actually was taking their people out so they could go up and go through the roof access, to get in, they were trying to pump out water around their pumps. So we even helped them during the flood, you know, to do that, just working together, because we're all one, and we're dependent on that water, that's important stuff.
How many horsepower you have on that boat to hold against that stream?
Well, we got one that's got 90 horse on it, but I don't know what the other one is, but,
40 on the other.
I'm not gonna get in the water myself. When you see a big tree floating down next to the boat, makes me
Or a
nervous.
pig or a cow, I've seen the pig and cow.
I passed out, and Mike just put that together for me. Now, I would like to get to the point, I'd like to add some stuff to that, but I'd like to get to the point where I could maybe send some out monthly. That's just the month of
Interesting.
June, is what that is.
It's just incident runs that we.
Yeah.
Right, for
So-
June.
And most of your calls are from number 2.
Yeah, we had 221 calls, 68% of them are EMS, that's
Yeah.
pretty standard. Some departments are even higher than that, and it averages, 7.3 per day, but that's just the month of June. One thing that's kind of interesting is, you would think maybe weekends would be busier, but when you look at the day of the week, actually, we ran more calls on a Tuesday. And then you think a lot of times nighttime, there's more calls,
Yeah.
actually around the noon hour.
Noon hour,
Just kind
yeah.
of looking at some trends there, we're busy
Interesting.
around noon.
Real quickly, since I'm not seeing all these colors as clearly, I know that there were 152 rescue and EMS on fire, status 100. Which one is it? 9, 27?
It's the 9
9.
fire calls in June.
And explosions, 0. Overpressure rupture, no fire. Is that a 0? And we had
Yes,
0
that was
calls?
Yeah.
Okay. Hazardous condition, 13.
Yes.
Okay. Service call, which one is
It's
it?
9,
9.
27.
We're not.
27.
27.
27,
That's,
okay.
yeah, I think it's 27.
Good intent call, 11. false alarm, must be a 9.
Yeah, yes.
What is a good intent call?
I anticipated that. A good intent call, there's a good, and that's another, when someone puts in the report, some things may fit in more than one box, so it's not always real consistent, but a good intent, others, what we list is 600. Were dispatched and canceled en route. No incident found on arrival at the address.
Okay.
A smoke scare, odor scare, a dryer vent, someone calls us and it's just a
Okay.
barbecue or something like that. You know, it's good intent, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
Those are good intent calls.
Cat in the tree.
You ever pull the cat out of a tree, Chief?
I've taken a couple personally off of a roof of a garage, you know, and I know it's something you don't think about that we do, but when someone's calling you at 3 in the morning and it's an elderly lady and, you know, her little cat would just, it's easier just to go do it than
That's good.
We're here to help people,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
that's what we do, so.
I hope we don't get too many cats out of trees. Never seen a cat skeleton in a tree.
So back to fire admin, then fire suppression is, you can see from the full-time numbers, that's your firefighters, on the increase in that. And again, really no changes. The increases are due to, salary and compensation.
How many firefighters do we have? 54?
In suppression, we have 49.
Okay.
That includes the battalion
And
shift,
your total staff, including admin, is?
54.
54, okay, that's the number, okay.
Our minimum daily staffing suppression is 13, and that includes the battalion chief.
So how does the schedule work for a firefighter? Like what shifts do they work?
Well, they work, it's called a Berkeley here, it's a little different, but they work a 24-hour shift, they work 24 hours. And then they're off at 24 hours, and then they come back and work another 24. And after they work 3, then they have 4 days off.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it's around a 53-hour, it's called a Berkeley. It's called it's a 53-hour work week. But they usually end up working like 56 or so. So anything over 53, they get overtime time and a half on that. But that's, yeah, they usually end up working about 56 actually hours. And then the average is over a 28-day cycle. They look at FMLA and.
That's called Berkeley, like,
The Berkeley, yeah. I
is there
personally
something
don't,
called
I
a
personally,
Berkeley?
not that I know of.
Maybe, I've heard of it.
In my career, I worked at 24/48, and it was pretty straightforward. You work 1 off 2, so you could have A, B, C. Here, you know, it's A, B, C, B, and so I don't always know who's gonna show up tomorrow.
That's why you need that management program.
Exactly.
And then for training logistics too, on the other one, you can go like train on Tuesday, and hit all 3 shifts. Here you may hit the same shift 3, so it's a little. But I tell you, the trend, what people are going to around, is a 48, 96. So they work 2 and off 4. That's what people are going to.
Can't you change it?
Oh, we've talked to the guys, because the hours, it would be no difference in the money or hours worked or anything. It would be logistically, but a lot of we're split, you know, unless everybody was on board with it. Because a lot of people don't want to spend 48 hours.
You're giving me, yeah.
I got you.
When you get into shift, we police shift changed
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, and it was half loved it, half hated it.
Ah,
It's
I
kind of
got
what
you.
you're used
I got
to, and
Yeah, that's what my thing, unless everybody was on board.
Yeah, I got you.
If you're
It's
gonna
hard to-
wait for everybody to be on board for everything,
Yeah.
you're never gonna get anything
No,
done.
I understand that. No, I
There's
understand.
people probably against the schedule you have right now. That's your call, don't bring it to us.
No.
Don't bring it to us.
No, if I had my way, I'd have already switched to 24/48.
I don't want you to get into the details, but it does seem I don't know how that math works out, you know, the 48 and then 96. Don't get into it now, but, you know, in terms of that, on 48 and
well,
off 96.
FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, what they look at for firefighters is in a 28-day cycle. So we actually do 2 pay periods. And as long as you don't work over 212 hours in 28 days, it's straight time. So we can actually work up to 53 hours a week without overtime.
Wow.
Anything over that, then it's overtime, which if they've already worked it, we give them a halftime. So we actually do 2 pay periods, and then the computer system subtracts the 212 hours from the number of hours they actually work. So every other pay period, our guys may have a little additional money on there because they went over that. So it's,
Subtracts that.
yeah. Oh, she does it manually?
Yeah.
It's definitely
good.
subtracts that math.
So it's very complex, but it's the most efficient way, really working 24 hours, because in 1977, I was in Kansas City, we went to 8-hour shifts. Not really efficient. Well, when you go from a 50-hour work week to a 40, you gotta hire a lot more people. So it just didn't work out too good.
And how are you doing as far, are all the positions filled now?
We currently have 2 openings. Right now. We had 2 people start today, brand new people start today.
Okay.
And then our fire marshal retired.
Oh, yeah.
And then who else left? We have another opening. We had just leave and go to KCK.
That's not too bad. I mean, we only have 2 positions, so. not
Our
filled.
problem a little bit is we get, 4, 5, 6 applicants, and out of that, you may not want to hire 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, good, good.
Reference your
Not qualified.
scheduling. If you have a scheduling issue, or you're gonna reschedule or do whatever, I would ask at least for this commissioner, don't bring it to the commission to
I don't
play
foresee
Solomon.
that.
And if you are, tell me when, so I can miss that meeting.
I don't foresee that.
Way beyond
I don't
what I
foresee,
wanna
we
get
got other
involved
things
in.
we're working on. I don't foresee wanting to take
Yeah.
that.
They need to
right.
throw
No.
barbs at you, not at us.
The fire marshal work, is it just done by the fire marshal, or does he have some firefighters
Well,
working with him when they do the
we-
fire marshal work?
All the fire trucks go out and we do annual inspections.
Oh, yes.
They do the annual inspections.
Okay,
When they go out and they find a few violations, a few things, then they turn it over to the fire marshal, because he's more familiar with the codes and
Okay.
all that. They do plan reviews, they look at the sprinkler systems, annual tests of that.
Good.
Complaints. When there's buildings under construction, there's numerous times
Yep.
they go out,
Right.
so they do that, more of that
Okay.
type of thing.
Real quickly on Fire Station 103, the number of calls. I know this is just a snapshot of June, but do you think that's indicative of all the months?
Choose runs more, hence we have 2 companies down there, 2
Yeah.
trucks down there. They do run more. And I think Paul's gonna have me later in the year come, because we started doing something, did you mention that?
No, but
And it's something, the company's called My Sidewalk, and I think Taylor and Julie's even kind of access it, but they put together a dashboard, and what it is, we send them our numbers every month, and then they got all these computer programmers and stuff, and it's a way of us to measure and see what we're doing on ongoing monthly, and our goal, we're using national standard goals, like a dispatcher, when they say 911, what's your emergency, they should, what I call drop the tones. Tone is out within a minute, okay? We should be able, on an EMS call, once that tone drops and they give the address, we should be able to get on that truck and go out that door in a minute. If it's a fire, I think you're allowed like another 80 seconds, because you gotta put your gear on and stuff. And then your drive time, 4 minutes to get on the scene. So overall, total response is like 6 minutes. So we're looking at stuff like that. It's also showing us which station is a little faster getting out than the other station. So it's a way for us to take a look and see where we can make some improvements. So we've been working on that, we're trying to refine it. The downside, the way things are, like when a tone comes out and say station 2 says engine 2's responding, then a dispatcher has to do the timestamp. So it's a human, we got a human factor in there. It may be somebody kind of wake and someone else is on the radio. When you pull up on a scene, if there's fire and stuff going, that person may get excited and forget to go on the scene because he's busy, So some things are skewed a little bit, but they have a lot of mathematical formulas they use to try to figure all that out. So we're looking at that. Just this last month, we were looking really good. And I was concerned at first because she kept saying, the lady that's doing this for us said that, it was like 70%. We're hitting 90%, and we go for 90 percentile. We're hitting our 90 percentile, our goal is 70% of the time, like 69. And I said, whoa, that's not that good. She said, no, that's very good. She said, if you said 100%, your goals are too low,
Yeah.
So we're using national standard goals. But then I said, well, what's some of the other, because just so I know, what's some of the other, without mentioning names, maybe some other departments in the area of Johnson County. There was one at 20%. I won't mention Leawood, but it was like 20%. So we are really
They
good.
all got money, so that's okay.
Now our some of our guys got concerned when I was trying to explain it to them about, well, because they didn't like necessarily what it showed, a little slower than somebody else. They were saying, well, you know, you told us to drive safe, and I said, our response from driving the truck is not, we're really good. Where you make up the difference is getting out the door. You know, when that tone comes in, you hustle to that truck and get out the door. And I don't know what happened. We've been in conversation with them. This last month we sent, she asked for some other kind of data that might extract it out of our database and center, and every single one of them spiked way up. So we're not for sure, you know. So we want to get that really refined before we kind of roll it out and show people. But it's a way of measuring off the national standards and stuff. That's what the departments that go for accreditation, it's what they go for. Also, what I like about it, and that's why I kind of, when I went down there, I come back and share with Taylor and Julie. It shows the map of the city. It shows where the bulk of our calls are at, demographics, and all kinds of ways. So you can see, you know, if we're running a lot of calls in a certain area, and then the police do mapping, and they're running a lot of calls, and then from the economic development side, is that a blighted area? Is that an area that we need to look at? And where's most of the calls at? Of course, we have the 2 high-rises, Cody Plaza and stuff. We run a lot of calls there, and you know, planners. So you can see those areas pop up. So it gives you some idea, you know, where the stations are located and where you're making the bulk of your
If
calls.
you were to implement this, would this be a cost? I mean, this sounds like it's something on the computer and.
No, it is a cost.
Right.
It's our part was, and actually they gave us a discount because I kept saying, we have no money. You know?
Sure.
We're paying $6,000 a year.
Okay.
And the way I look at it, that's a lot cheaper than having employees that are trying to do that.
No.
But also, so that's what we're paying them. And it's taken them, we started the first year, and then because we did it, then economic development was kind of able to kind of tag along a little bit to get the stuff they need for, you know, expensive. And that's why I mentioned in the budget, I moved stuff around because I was actually trying to move stuff around to cover some of them costs. So we was able to do it with our existing dollars.
Metrics, quite a concept, right? Metrics. I mean, that's what we're talking about, and an easy way to see it and then manage.
I love
lead.
data.
So that's good.
You know, once again, I don't know if June's report is indicative of, you know, the year or 5-year trend, but I suspect it somewhat follows. And you see station number 3 having 3 times the number of calls, station number 1. It's not for this budget term, but sometime in the future, this commission or future commissions, station number 3 needs, and I know we've talked about it, it needs some updating, gets a lot of action, and it's not quite up to par. It's a 50-year-old station plus, and at some point, it needs work. And,
No, it does.
and that doesn't come cheap.
With our street, when you look at a map, and even so, and I have the GIS put circles around them, 2 mile kind of, we're strategically good. We didn't get all the full credit actually with ISO, which I didn't think was fair on Station 1, because when you put the circle around it, a lot of it's not in the city limits. They went city limits. But, you know, whoever did it was probably thinking forward. That's the only direction we could ever annex or grow.
Right.
So as they build up, we'll be in good shape. You know, we can't go any of the other directions. So that's what I told them. I said, well, we were looking ahead. You know, so.
And that's obvious, back to your question on Station 1, if that's indicative of all throughout the year, that lower response, and that is true. Station 1 always runs the least. Sure. And that's just
it's a newer
the
area.
geographical area. That's the new area where, you know, and there's very little commercial area out there, so
everything with the codes and stuff. So.
Well, there's not a lot of elderly in that area either. It's mostly younger families and so forth.
Thank you, Nancy. Very nice.
I'm older than you are.
You resemble that remark.
Commissioner Griswold smiles.
Yep, we covered the other fire stuff during the CIP, the equipment purchase, so I don't have anything else. I do want to commend Gary. Whenever we do this kind of stuff, it sounds great, but I always put the emphasis back on the department to show me they're going to use it. Whether it's a work order system, my sidewalk, or something, and Gary has been right on the forefront of doing all this with them and showing the payoff of it, and even exposing and bringing in other departments and divisions. So Gary and his team, Mike and Mark DeMarinville, did a lot of work because he's very good on Firehouse, which was the software system they had. So so the fire department admin team has done a really good job. I want to mention that.
Very
Two
good.
things I always ask and want to emphasize, I hope that there's strong tornado drills that you do in the schools, especially the elementary schools, every year. And I'm sure you've got an SOP lined up for when, not if, but probably when at some time we have a train derailment. God knows what those trains carry through this town. There's 30 or 50 trains a day that come steam through here 55 miles an hour. And someday something's going to happen.
There's a lot of hazardous materials too.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've got an SOP on that.
Well, it's on that side of the town next to that river, and the wind is usually coming out of the west.
Yeah, but the school tornado drills and the elementary
On the
schools.
schools, fire drills, tornado drills, in fact, they just made some changes at the state. They're kind of regulated to have so many drills a year, the schools are, and it just changed. Used to be, I think, monthly, but I just seen where that changed on the state. We have a good relationship with them too. We've actually done some of their fire drills with them where we actually responded and the test the system. But we have a meeting place, usually flagpole, and then their teachers have had communication. So like they will tell a classroom or teacher to stay in, don't go outside. And then we get there and it's make sure they can communicate that, and we go in and try to find them. So we work with them on those things.
The tornado drills, is it Henry Leavenworth is the only one that has a safe room? Am I correct?
It's the newer ones, but yeah, I think that may be the
Because I don't think Anthony and Brewer and Lawson, I don't know where they go in a tornado. That's what I'm concerned about.
They usually go-
You know, because those things just,
Right,
you know,
they usually go
we
in
don't want a more
stairwells,
Oklahoma
lowest
thing.
level, and try to get in stairwells and
Yeah,
stuff.
so that's all.
How about your communications? You have good interchangeable communications with the police department in terms of, you know?
Well, we use the same dispatcher, but
But I mean, when you're going, if there's an incident where the police and the fire are both on site, I mean, can you communicate?
We can, but usually what we do is if we have two, we put our supervisor with their supervisor.
Okay.
And so it's, you know, it's what they call unified command. So
Cool.
we do it that way.
But in terms of.
That way we're not talking and walking on each other. You know, we
Yeah,
can
and it
communicate.
hopefully minimizes the amount of conversation that maybe is going on over the radios and
Right.
things like that, but,
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more before our lunch break. CVB. Christy Lee. Where is CVB?
Page 23.
So, Taylor, if you want to take CVB and along with Christy.
Sure.
Good afternoon.
So, as you know, we have our fourth hotel online now. So our revenues for the transient guest tax are coming in, and they're coming in higher than expected. For next year, we're budgeting $450,000, but we anticipate that'll most likely be higher than that. But we want to be conservative in the estimates.
That's a big change from when we
Yeah.
got started
Yeah.
with this.
60,000, 70,000 when I was on the
Yeah.
CVB board.
Yeah, I
They
actually,
weren't even paying.
I noticed
23.
year to date, we've made what we made in 2015 for 2019. So that's impressive.
Yeah.
And that results in more people coming to Leavenworth, and that's the goal.
Right.
You want to go over some of the changes that?
I think the main changes that we've kind of added, as the funding does increase in that, we have tried to keep up with that. We are advertising more, so my advertising line item has increased. So, and we've got several plans for that coming in the coming year in that. A couple of billboard campaigns that we plan on doing, and then some other video campaigns and some other things that we're going to be putting towards that fund. I guess for 2020, we are starting it this year in that. We've increased, we will hopefully be increasing staff here in the next month or so, a part-time position that we're going to be sharing with Human Resources in that. They will have them for 20 hours and then we'll have them for 20 hours. And with the increase in our budget, and that we've just really seen an increase in our workload, our increase in paperwork, increase in everything. So hoping this part-time person can really get a handle on the paperwork and help with that end of it to free us up to pursue some of those projects that we've been kind of putting off to the side because you just don't have time to do them. So hoping that this will really help us in the office flow and the office work and everything, and getting a lot more things accomplished for us in the future. Those are really the main. We did increase the grant to the public in that. We had started out with $20,000 in the grant program, and we've moved it up to $30,000 for the grant program in that. So I think that will allow us to fund a few more events in the area, or whatever marketing campaigns that some of our stakeholders
We're getting a
apply
lot
for.
of
So
we're getting a lot of requests for it, and they're good requests.
Yeah.
They're literally direct marketing the community, or like take the Carousel Museum for example, or
yeah, I think they've been
Yeah.
really, really good, and I can see it getting more competitive as it goes on in that, and they get an actual feel for what they can submit and what they can apply for, and as the program grows and as they get more, efficient at filling out those applications, I just see it getting more and more competitive in the future, but I think they're doing a good job.
So we've seen things like the First City Film Festival, the Cool Hand Loop Gravel Grinder Bike Ride, new signage and rack cards and promotional materials for different museums around town. And they're all good submissions, and so upping that hopefully will let us fund a few more.
Were there any plans for any billboards on the highways?
There always is, yes. We we usually what I've tried to do in the past is do like a summer program and then a winter program.
Okay.
And that as far as billboards, so.
And where would the billboards be? I-29 or?
Whichever's available. So that's one of those things that, you've got some of your billboard companies that you deal with in that, and you call them and find out what they have available and will it work for you and that. So it's a process that you go through trying to figure out which billboards are going to be available, because sometimes the one that you want isn't available.
And we've done a mix of the electronic billboards and stationary
And vinyl,
billboards. It just comes down to what's available, but the electronic ones are very exciting, especially on I-70
Yeah, I've seen
and
them on
I-35,
I-70, right.
I-29.
Those
We've
are the-
had them
yeah.
in all those locations.
Yeah. Those are the main thoroughfares, I guess, that I try and target is the I-70, I-35, and 29.
I-29, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So with the festival coming up, is there any money in the budget for a billboard on one of those interstates to help with, getting the awareness out there with respect to our festival?
There's funds in the festival for marketing, so.
I'm not directing any,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna direct anything, but I just would like to get the word out as best we can, and I think that if it's in the right place, I think it can be high payoff in terms of maybe getting some people into our city for that city festival, so.
As far as I know, isn't it Whiskey Marketing that's handling the marketing for the festival and that, so I've not been privy to
Yeah, so O'Neill and Paul and I'll be going over the marketing for that with them.
And and I know that when we had the kind of the opening event, about a month ago or so, and they came out with their logo and everything and the coloring, there was a little feedback that we needed, that there were some things that weren't a standard. Mr. Tedder, have we taken care of that with, like the font and being able to, be in conformance with ADA and things like that? or-
Yeah, they determined that it's,
Okay.
it meets all the standards that we need. The website did need some help, and
They were able to
they've
make
worked on
those.
that.
Yeah.
But the actual logo and all of the
I
branding
would
is
say, and
okay.
I shared this with the city manager, that billboard that's on 10th Avenue Park, I mean, I don't know, if I didn't know it was
Looks faded out, yeah.
It's faded out, plus you can't, you know,
It
the
doesn't look-
lettering's
you can't
not big
tell.
enough to know that it's a
can't read it.
festival. And
Right.
I do
Yeah.
think we need to, because that road is
You can
traveled
brighten it
and,
up.
and we gotta get that squared away.
Yeah, anything further will make it so it's easier to read, especially on things like that.
But it's just, it's the contrast, I think, on it. It's just, it looks like it's faded and it is difficult to read. And that's around town a few places.
Yeah, I think on that
needs to
one,
be
because so
corrected.
many people do, and I do think
It does.
if we could make a change on, what do we have, 2 months, a little over 2 months, I know, between now and the festival.
Yeah, put a
I
black
think
out.
if we can
Get a
afford it,
marker.
hopefully we could, I think it,
Just, there's no contrast to it.
Yeah, we can get that replaced.
Yeah.
and look at the, yeah, the contrast is the big thing, but then just look at the size of the fact that the word festival, it's hard to, even with the crown, the lettering's pretty small, it's at the bottom of the sign.
Pull over to read it.
Well, I can't read it, I mean, so
No, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
so.
Let me ask a couple perfunctory questions, maybe for any of finance people or whoever. Am I reading this correctly, that we're gonna have a reserve at the end of 2020, $527,000?
That's an estimate, yeah.
An estimate?
Yeah.
And we can pay for employees' personnel expenses out of this transient guest tax, as long as it's used for tourism-type activities.
Yes.
Is that correct? You know, that's $500,000 reserve is big, and I'm not saying spend it all, but I think we should be spending.
Well, I just like
Little,
to, yeah.
little thoughts that I have, I've brought up before, and maybe it's done, like strategically place trash cans on every corner and mid-block, all through the downtown, 28 square block downtown area where there's a lot of traffic, and maybe even hire a person for 20 hours a week, whatever, to maintain, to dump those trash cans. Some, you know, just, I don't know, use some creative ways of
I would like
using
to
that money.
note too, though, that like the festival, all of the festival expenses aren't even in this.
Right,
Right.
but
So
do you
that's,
think we're
know,
gonna eat up?
huge, So we don't know
We don't
yet.
know.
Yeah, but I doubt that we're gonna eat up $527,000 on the fest, but just something that
Right.
it really shows a lot of impact. I mean, signs and advertising, I think, are very important, but, you know, tangible things that a lot of citizens can see, you
Some
know.
of the
that-
stuff that was in the St. Mary's marketing
Yeah,
plan
yeah.
is eligible.
Yeah.
And the reason we haven't done anything with that, Melissa will handle a lot of what they put together. She just finished the website. That was the big project. The
Right.
website's up now, so we'll transition her and Taylor and Chrissy in implementing some of the stuff from that St. Mary's group.
And that website is awesome. It is great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so much better.
And I know the law is kind of vague, has to be used for tourism-related activities.
So we opened up our local ordinance stuff.
Yeah,
We redid
yeah.
ours.
And it's one of those things I'd rather ask for permission, or ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
I liked it the
I
first
even,
time.
I even said have a tourist cop who tours just the hotels in downtown, and that was probably a bit of a stretch, but, I hope that we look at some a lot of tangible things too.
And the CVB's new website, just FYI, it should be launching in the next week or
Good.
two.
Hope to have
So-
it done by hopefully, I'm shooting for at least by next Friday. So
Good,
that's
thank
what
you.
I'm aiming for. We're working on it pretty diligently in these next couple days and next week and stuff in between what we're doing
Is it the
throughout
same
day.
company that?
It's the
worked on
same
it?
company, it has similar features, but it has a whole different look than the city's site. It has the red color scheme and all separate photos and community calendar and all kinds of really great stuff, and we'll be showing you that soon.
Yes,
So.
definitely, yeah.
Any discussion about enhancing the Christmas lights this year?
I haven't heard any, but I know that that was probably, you know, in the plans as well, and then the downtown, the signage,
The wayfinding.
the wayfinding deal was on there. I know Main Street, and maybe in the future, I would like to get a little bit more involved with their art initiatives that they've got going, and, I mean, there's things that we can work on in the future, I think, that
Yeah, I think the art initiatives are good. I see that a lot in other communities that
Yeah.
really do add attractiveness
Good.
to.
It's a good,
Yeah.
it's a good program, I think. Wendy's gonna be here, right, later this afternoon?
She's here right after lunch.
Right, I think she may give us an update on that. I've been at some of
She
the-
only has 10 minutes, so
Has
be
yet-
fast.
It only takes 5 or 10 seconds to talk about what they're doing as far as the art, which I think is really good, so.
If there's nothing else, we'll enter our lunch break. I think our lunch is here. I'll have it brought in, and then we'll resume with the library. Will be the first after lunch at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
Question, Paul?